Every action needs a reaction. Like if you break your arm, an X-ray gives you this really clean binary answer, right? You look at the film, you see the jagged white line, and the doctor points and says, there it is, broken.
Right. It's pure visible precision.
Exactly. We crave that kind of clarity in life. But the moment you pick up a video game controller, that clean reality just vanishes. You are stepping into an invisible, highly engineered trap.
Oh, absolutely. It's the ultimate illusion of freedom.
Yeah, you push a button and the game pushes back, and how it pushes back, like the mathematical rhythm of that invisible system, dictates whether you play for 5 minutes and get bored, or play for 5 years and completely lose track of reality.
You think you're making spontaneous choices, but you're actually just navigating a living, breathing cybernetic system. It's constantly calculating your behavior and altering its own reality just to keep you hooked.
So today on our deep dive, we are pulling back the curtain on how games talk back to you. We're looking at a huge stack of sources today: masterclass lectures, game design textbooks like The Art of Game Design and Rules of Play, and some really fascinating case studies from the game beyond.
Yeah, there's some incredible stuff in those materials.
There really is. And our mission today is to decode these invisible systems governing our play. We're going to specifically look at the absolute core concept of game design, which is positive versus negative feedback loops. And we're going to explore why negative feedback is actually the secret, totally counterintuitive ingredient to a great game.
I love this topic because to even begin understanding how these mechanics manipulate us, we have to borrow a concept straight out of mechanical engineering.
Okay, let's unpack this because that sounds intense.
It's really not too bad.
Mhm.
Every interactive experience relies on what's called a cybernetic system. And this isn't just a fancy word for computers. It's a continuous three-part cycle of communication. It consists of a sensor, a comparator, and an activator.
I want to make sure we ground this because, those sound like parts of a car engine. How does a sensor, a comparator, and an activator actually manifest when I'm just, sitting on my couch playing a game?
Think of it as a constant high-speed conversation between you and the software. Let's say you're playing a first-person shooter. You take an action like you shoot an opponent.
Right.
The game's sensor registers that data point. Then the comparator looks at that data and compares it against the rulebook. It asks, did this player just hit 3 targets in a row without dying?
Oh, okay.
If the answer is yes, the activator triggers a response. It drops a radar sweep onto your screen, revealing enemy locations.
Which instantly changes my behavior. Suddenly I have new information, so I stop hiding and I start hunting aggressively. I change the game, so the game changed, which changed me.
Exactly. It's a continuous loop. And that specific type of loop where success breeds more success is the first major category we need to look at. Game designers call these reinforcing loops. You'll also hear them referred to as positive feedback loops. But we have to, divorce the word positive from the concept of good or happy.
Right, because it doesn't mean it's a positive experience for everyone.
Exactly. In systems engineering, positive simply means additive. It amplifies change. It takes whatever's happening and just multiplies it.
It's essentially compound interest. Like if you have money in the bank, compound interest is a glorious reinforcing loop. Your money makes a little money, which gets added to the pile, which makes even more money.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy.
But if you're the one in debt, that exact same reinforcing loop is terrifying. It just buries you faster and faster.
That is the perfect way to look at it. But imagine if the bank also gave the richest guy a machine gun to defend his vault.
Oh, man.
Right. That is what a reinforcing loop looks like in a competitive space. The early Call of Duty games are legendary for this with their kill streak systems. You get those 3 kills, the activator gives you a radar. Well, now that you have a radar, getting the next 2 kills is exponentially easier.
Right, and at 5 kills, I get an airstrike.
Which practically guarantees you hit 7 kills, unlocking an attack helicopter that just roams the map, destroying the other team for you.
Wow, yeah.
Your initial marginal success compounds into absolute dominance. And we see the exact same architecture in, classic Japanese role-playing games.
Oh, like leveling up.
Exactly. You start with a wooden sword, kill a low-level slime. You get experience points, you level up, you hit harder. Now you can kill 10 slimes a minute instead of 1. The loop just accelerates.
I completely get the math here, but wait, as a player, that feels fantastic. That's the ultimate power fantasy. If I'm playing better than everyone else in the lobby, don't I deserve the airstrike? I put in the work to upgrade my sword. Why is this universally considered a massive trap in game design?
It's because of a mathematical concept called divergent behavior. Reinforcing loops are designed to push a system to a rapid conclusion. So if two teams are tied in a stalemate, a reinforcing loop ensures that the second one team gains like a 1% advantage. They snowball that into a quick, decisive win so the game doesn't just last for 6 hours.
That makes
But
sense.
the trap, which is often called the winner stays winning problem in our sources, is what happens to the human beings on the other side of that math.
You mean the people getting farmed by the attack helicopter?
Exactly. Think about their cybernetic loop. The player in the lead is accelerating toward infinity. The trailing players are caught in a death spiral.
A death spiral. That sounds awful.
It is. They spawn, they die instantly to a kill streak, they learn nothing, they lose resources, and they spawn again even weaker. The mechanics of the system are actively preventing them from engaging with the game.
Wow.
If you strip away player agency completely, they just put the controller down and leave,
Mm-hmm.
the system breaks.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if a runaway reinforcing loop ruins the experience by ending the game too brutally or, alienating new players, designers clearly need a countermeasure. They need a way to pull the rubber band back and artificially tighten the gap.
Which brings us to the counterintuitive hero of our story balancing loops, also known as negative feedback. And again, negative doesn't mean a punishment. It means stabilizing.
Stabilizing.
A balancing loop opposes extreme change. It identifies a runaway advantage and actively pulls the system back toward a competitive equilibrium.
The classic real-world anchor for this from the texts is the thermostat in your hallway. You set it to 72 degrees. The sensor monitors the air. If the sun comes out and the room hits 78 degrees, which is an extreme divergent change, the comparator flags it and the activator kicks on the cold air conditioning.
Right.
It's a negative feedback loop, constantly fighting to maintain a baseline environment. It wants stability.
And if we map that desire for stability onto a video game, the most brilliant, infamous execution of a balancing loop in history is the item distribution system in Mario Kart.
Oh, absolutely. It's a masterclass in behavioral engineering disguised as a colorful racing game.
It really is.
It's also the destroyer of lifelong friendships.
Oh yeah, because it is ruthlessly efficient. Let's look at the cybernetic breakdown. The game's sensor is constantly tracking the exact distance between the player in first place and the player in 8th place. Okay. If you're dominating the race, the comparator recognizes your runaway advantage. So when you hit an item box, the activator hands you a banana peel, a nearly useless item that really doesn't help you extend your lead.
But if I'm in dead last, bouncing off the walls, the system recognizes I am completely disengaged from the core fun of the race. So the activator hands me a bullet bill, which literally takes control of my cart and rockets me forward at triple speed, bypassing all obstacles.
Exactly. It artificially injects momentum into the losing player. And then, of course, there's the blue shell, the great equalizer.
Oh, the dreaded blue shell.
The blue shell is fascinating because it's a balancing loop that specifically targets the apex of the divergent behavior. It ignores everyone else on the track, flies directly to the player in first place, and blows them up.
It literally punishes the winner to force the race back into a clustered, highly competitive equilibrium.
Yes.
It's wild to think about it in those terms because it isn't just digital. You can look at analog games that have survived for decades and find the exact same stabilizing mechanisms. Like, think about chutes and ladders.
Oh, that's a great example.
Right. The fundamental rule at the very end of the game is that you have to roll the exact number to land on the final square.
The exact landing rule. It's a brilliant analog balancing loop.
A player could get wildly lucky, hit all the ladders, and reach the end of the board while everyone else is still at the start. But because they have to roll, say, exactly a 2 to win, the mathematical probability of them stalling out is incredibly high. They sit there rolling 4s and 5s, going nowhere, which gives the trailing players 10 or 15 turns to catch up. The rule actively stalls the leader to guarantee a nail-biting, clustered finish.
But this requires a phenomenally delicate touch from the designer, because human beings have a very complex psychological relationship with fairness.
Yeah, nobody wants to feel cheated.
Exactly. If we detect that a balancing loop is too aggressive, if it feels heavy-handed, the illusion shatters. If you're a highly skilled player and the game constantly, visibly erases your hard-earned advantage, you don't feel challenged, you feel punished.
Which brings to mind the hidden dynamic difficulty adjustment in Resident Evil 4. This is a legendary piece of game design history from our sources.
It's a perfect case study in the dangers of balancing loops. The designers built a system that constantly judged your performance.
Okay.
If your accuracy was high and you weren't taking damage, the sensor picked that up. The comparator decided you were having an easy time, and the activator quietly made the enemies faster, more aggressive, and harder to kill.
On paper, that sounds like brilliant design. It keeps the tension perfectly balanced. The thermostat is adjusting the heat. But psychologically, it sends incredibly toxic mixed signals to the player.
It actively punishes mastery. By making the enemies harder in response to your skill, the game is fundamentally telling you that making mistakes is the optimal way to play.
Wow, yeah.
This is precisely why Capcom hid the system from the public for years. If players understand that performing well makes the game punishingly difficult, they'll intentionally start missing shots and taking damage just to trick the comparator into keeping the enemies slow.
Because the balancing loop creates a perverse incentive that destroys the intended horror experience.
Exactly.
So you have this high wire act. Reinforcing loops create excitement but can snowball into a broken game. Balancing loops keep the game competitive but can make players feel punished for being good.
Right.
If a developer launches a game and realizes the system has spiraled out of control, let's say they accidentally built a winner stays winning trap, how do they fix it after the fact without ruining the fun?
They rely on iteration, which is essentially the oxygen of game design. You have to locate the specific wire in the cybernetic loop that's causing the runaway effect, and you dampen it.
Dampening the loop. Walk me through how that actually works in practice.
Let's go back to that Call of Duty attack helicopter scenario. The loop was broken because the kills you got from your reward counted toward your next reward.
Oh, right.
The helicopter got you kills, which earned you a nuclear strike, which ended the game. The loop fed itself infinitely without the player ever having to take a risk.
Okay, so how do you fix that?
To fix this, in later games like Call of Duty, Black Ops, the designers implemented a dampening rule. They simply stated, kills achieved by a kill streak reward no longer count towards your overall streak.
Oh, wow. That completely severs the automated loop.
Yes.
The reward is still powerful. You still get the helicopter. You still get the power fantasy. But to keep progressing, you actually have to pull your physical gun back out, step out of hiding, and put your character in danger again. The runaway snowball is stopped dead in its tracks.
Another incredibly elegant solution is to inject player agency directly into the balancing loop. We talked about how frustrating the blue shell can be because it feels like an unavoidable punishment for being in first place.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do.
Well, in Mario Kart 8, Nintendo finally gave players a way to fight back. They introduced the Super Horn, a very rare item that the first-place player can occasionally acquire.
And if you time it perfectly, the super horn emits a shockwave that actually shatters the blue shell right before it hits you.
Exactly. It transforms a frustrating automated punishment into a high-stakes tactical decision. You're giving the player a tool to negotiate with the system's balancing loop.
But giving players that kind of agency introduces what has to be the biggest nightmare for any systems designer. Dominant strategies. I know this is a massive topic in game theory. When millions of players are testing your cybernetic loops, eventually someone finds a crack in the armor. They find an exploit that guarantees a win every single time.
Yes, and in the mathematical topology of game design, a dominant strategy is referred to as a saddle point.
A saddle point.
Right. Imagine the entire game as a vast three-dimensional landscape of choices, strategies, and consequences. Designers work tirelessly to make that landscape wide and varied, what we call the space of possibility.
Okay.
But a saddle point is a flaw in the math, where the landscape effectively flattens out. All complex choices collapse into a single, unarguable, optimal action.
So no matter what the opponent does, choosing X guarantees victory. The puzzle is solved. The mystery is gone.
And once the space of possibility collapses, the core engagement of the system evaporates. You're no longer making interesting choices, you're just executing a flowchart.
But let me push back on this, or at least look at it from the player's perspective, because gamer culture actually glorifies this.
Sure.
There are massive communities built around speedrunning, min-maxing, and completely shattering the intended rules of a game. Finding a dominant strategy makes players feel like geniuses. They outsmarted the developer. If the player's having a blast exploiting the math, is it really the designer's job to stop them?
It comes down to the social contract of the system, particularly in multiplayer environments. If one player utilizes a saddle point, a dominant strategy, they don't just solve the puzzle for themselves. They forcibly collapse the space of possibility for everyone else in the lobby.
Oh, I see.
The game ceases to be an interactive dialogue and becomes a monologue dictated by the player using the exploit. And even in single-player experiences, if a core mechanic can be easily bypassed, the journey loses its meaning. The designer intervenes not to ruin the player's fun, but to protect the integrity of the cybernetic loop so that the game actually retains its value over time.
We've spent all this time dissecting pixels on a screen, matchmaking lobbies, and board game mechanics. But the most profound realization here is that this architecture, this precise engineering of human behavior through feedback loops, has completely escaped the screen.
It really has.
These exact same systems are actively shaping your physical reality and your daily habit.
Game designers refer to these real-world applications as learning loops. When you strip away the graphics and the lore, a game is simply a system that provides instant, legible feedback to your actions. And the physical world is historically terrible at providing clear feedback.
Which is why we often struggle to build good habits or break bad ones. The real world doesn't give you a level up notification when you eat a salad.
Exactly.
But when designers apply cybernetic loops to physical spaces, the results are staggering. Look at the famous Fun Stairs project from our Game Beyond case studies.
It's a brilliant example of a physical reinforcing loop. The scenario is simple. You have a staircase next to an escalator in a public transit station. You want to encourage people to take the stairs for their cardiovascular health.
We know that hanging a poster that says, "Exercise is good for your heart," does absolutely nothing.
No, it doesn't.
The feedback is too delayed. Your brain cannot connect the action of walking up a stair today with not having a heart attack 20 years from now.
The comparator in the human brain cannot process that timeline effectively. So, the designers altered the immediate sensory feedback. They retrofitted the staircase to look and function like a giant piano keyboard.
Oh, I love this.
Every time a person stepped on a stair, it triggered an electronic sensor, and the activator played a crisp, musical note out loud.
It provided instant, positive auditory feedback.
It closed the loop immediately. The action itself became inherently rewarding. People started choosing the stairs, running up and down, creating songs, completely bypassing the escalator. They engineered a reinforcing loop that made physical exertion instantly gratifying.
We see the exact same psychological manipulation in household chores. Look at the Swiffer mop. It is a masterclass in exploiting our biological wiring.
Oh, absolutely. Mopping a floor is traditionally a thankless, invisible task.
Because the human eye, our biological sensor, is highly imperfect. When you mop a dusty hardwood floor with a traditional wet mop, your brain's comparator cannot easily distinguish between a floor that is currently dusty and a floor that is just slightly damp and less dusty.
Right. The visual data is muddy.
You don't feel a sense of accomplishment because you can't clearly see the progress. The feedback loop is broken.
So what did the designers of the Swiffer do? They changed the activator. They didn't just invent a new cleaning fluid. They introduced a stark, bright, white cleaning pad.
It creates a high-contrast visual binary. The moment you swipe that white pad across the floor, all the dark dirt, hair, and dust is immediately trapped and displayed against the white background.
Yes, you get instant, indisputable visual proof of your labor.
It satisfies the brain's desperate need to close an open loop. You swipe, you see the dirt, your brain receives a tiny hit of dopamine validating your effort, and you are immediately motivated to swipe again.
They took a mundane, repetitive chore and mapped it onto the exact same cybernetic structure as leveling up in a role-playing game.
Swipe, gather dirt, feel productive, repeat. It is a perfectly tuned behavioral loop. But there are ethical boundaries here, right? Like gamification versus serious games. Are we empowering people or exploiting them by creating loops that serve corporate interests rather than player fulfillment?
That's the million-dollar question. Once you understand the anatomy of these systems, the sensor, the comparator, the activator, you start seeing them absolutely everywhere. And you have to ask who benefits from the loop.
So what does this all mean? I want you to look around your life today. Think about the smartwatch strapped to your wrist. It tracks your movement, and the second you hit 10,000 steps, it gives your wrist a tiny celebratory buzz and flashes a digital badge on the screen. It's a reinforcing loop.
Look at how you interact with your phone, too.
Yeah, you post a picture online, the platform acts as the sensor, it compares your post against its algorithm, and it activates a tiny red notification dot. You get a like, you feel a hit of dopamine, a chemical reward, so you change your behavior and decide to post again tomorrow.
These are not accidents of technology. They are meticulously crafted cybernetic systems designed to capture and hold your attention. They're using the mathematics of game design to organize human behavior on a massive scale.
We have covered incredible ground today. We started by unpacking how reinforcing loops act as the engine of momentum, driving systems forward but threatening to trap participants in a hopeless death spiral.
Yeah, that winner stays winning trap.
We explored how balancing loops like the infamous blue shell save us from predictability by aggressively forcing equilibrium and keeping the stakes high. And we traced how these exact same mechanics have migrated off our screens to quietly dictate our physical behaviors, from the stairs we climb to the chores we complete.
Recognizing the mechanics is really the first step to understanding your own behavior within them.
And if you want to move beyond just recognizing these systems and actually learn how to build and control them yourself, you need to dive into the core mechanics. The feedback loop module is our most popular. Find out why at school.thegamebeyond.com.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. If our modern reality is increasingly structured around these invisible mechanics, points, miles, digital badges, and notifications, who is actually setting the win conditions for the game of your life? Are you purposefully playing the game, or is the feedback loop silently playing you?
Do you want to learn more about game design? Try our game design course. Go from learning the basics to becoming a master game designer. No coding skills needed. Taught by award-winning game designer Gabe Mack, this course is filled with hours of videos, puzzles, tools, and exercises to turn you into a serious game designer. Why are you waiting to harness the power of play? Visit school.thegamebeyond.com to sign up today.